Hi there and welcome to this lecture about the first humans. My name is Marcus Henriksson and I'm a history teacher here in Sweden. So where do humans come from? Well, if you ask religion, you might get the answer Adam and Eve. If you believe in Judaism, Christianity and Islam. If you ask a Buddhist or a Hindu or people with different beliefs, you might get different answers. If you ask science, they will perhaps refer you back to Charles Darwin, a scientist in the 19th century. He had the so-called theory of evolution, and he wrote about that in the book Origin of Species that was published in the year 1859. He claimed that humans are descended from apes. How did he get the idea, you might ask? Well, by studying fossils, animals, plants, etc. during his various trips, mostly in South America, but also in Africa. Today, it is scientifically proven that the humans' closest living relatives are the African great apes, the gorillas, and chimpanzees. And there are plenty of evidence. The first known great ape was named Lucy. She is more than 3.2 million years old. And she was found in Africa. But how did the apes evolve into humans? Well, one thing that is really important is when they started walking upright. They could then see further, run further, got the hands to do other things like picking up different tools, stones, and so on, which is really important if you are looking for certain foods. When? Well, nobody knows for sure. But some scientists and historians believe that we have been able to do this for at least 6 million years. So between 6 million years ago up until today, we can see several different human-ape groups. But we know for a fact that many of these groups evolved a lot during this time, mostly because they gained access to new and various foods. So the brain therefore developed a lot faster. And when the brain developed faster, the great apes learned to use different kind of tools. And the most successful apes, or human apes, in turn had more children than other apes, and therefore their genes, etc., were passed along in greater extent to other apes, to the next generation and their generation, and so on and so on and so on. But as I mentioned before, we can see a lot of different types of great apes during this time. One of them was Nisnas. Another one was Homo erectus, and they learned to use fire and stone axes about 1.6 million years ago. Another ape/human-ape species were the Homo habilis and the Denisova humans. But also, of course, the Neanderthals. The modern man is Homo sapiens sapiens. And at first, scientists, archaeologists, and historians believe that the first people, that is the Homo sapiens sapiens, developed in an area in East Africa known as Drift Valley, which lies in Ethiopia, about 200,000 years ago. But more recent studies from 2017 show that the Homo sapiens sapiens probably evolved in Morocco at least 280,000 years ago. When they did some kind of DNA analysis on these skulls, they showed that these skulls are between 280,000 to 350,000 years old. So how old Homo sapiens sapiens are? Well, we can't be sure, but we know for a fact that they are at least 280,000 years old. Who are our closest ancestors? Well, if we look on the great apes families and the human ape families, most scientists believe in Homo heidelbergensis. Why? Because our skulls are similar to one another. But some historians / archaeologists and scientists instead believe that our closest ancestor are Homo antecessor, because bone tissue and protein analysis from them show that we are kind of similar. But we also know that we have some connection with Neanderthals, a human species that lived mostly in the northern hemisphere, mainly in Europe but also in Africa. Asia. And they developed several 100,000 years ago. If we compare Homo sapiens sapiens with Neanderthals, we can see that Homo sapiens sapiens are better at procreating, better at finding certain foods, and better at adapting to new environments. But they are weaker than Neanderthals, they have a smaller brain, and they are worse at hunting and fishing. But the Neanderthals, they were bigger, had more muscles, and therefore needed more food. For a very long time, historians and scientists assumed that Neanderthals were hunchbacks, because they have a different skeletal structure. However, new research from 2019 from Switzerland show that just like Homo sapiens sapiens, they were straight-backed. But what happened to them? How come we don't see them today? Well, nobody knows for sure. There are different theories. The first theory was violence. Historians and scientists believe that Homo sapiens sapiens and Neanderthals killed one another, and that Homo sapiens sapiens were better at this and therefore gained the upper hand. Another theory is that of competition, that Homo sapiens sapiens were better at finding certain foods, and particularly better at this than the Neanderthals, and therefore eventually succeeded in outcompeting the Neanderthals. Some historians and scientists also believe that climate change could be a contributing factor. We can see a huge change in the climate about 128,000 years ago. And since Homo sapiens sapiens are better at adapting to new situations, this could be the case. Some French researchers have also found evidence that some Neanderthals became cannibals at the end and ate one another. And research also shows that Homo sapiens sapiens, especially from Europe, have a large percentage Neanderthal DNA in them, which basically means that Homo sapiens sapiens and Neanderthals, they might have mated with one another. About 50,000 years ago, basically the entire world was populated with just Homo sapiens sapiens. The other human apes or great apes or whatever you want to call them, they have now been extinct. And the Homo sapiens sapiens, they lived mostly by hunting animals, but also gathering stuff like nuts, roots, fruits, berries, and so on. But since this happened a long time ago, new discoveries and findings come to mean that we still continuously have to change what we know about the early beginnings of man. But how we started is perhaps not the most important thing. It is what happened afterwards. The sources I have used for this lecture are World History New Perspective by Clyde Ponting, A History of World Societies by John P. McKay, Perspective of an History by Lars Hansen Nörra Nyström, History by Elisabeth Ivansson, Robert Sandberg and Mattias Tordaj, Alla tiders historia maxi, All Time History Maxi by Harlem Sallgren, Börje Bergström and Arne Lövgren, Wikipedia, Human Evolution and Nature.com. But if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. Otherwise, have a great day. Bye.